had the report earlier today where Pete Thamel is saying that, hey, Huggins, his salary is going to be reduced by $1 million per season. He's going to undergo sensitivity training, and he will receive what Thamel called, quote, a significant suspension. Well, the first two things are true. The university is reducing his salary from like $4.2 to $3.2 million per season. His contract is now year to year. He is going to be forced to attend sensitivity training. The money that he would have earned per season on the contract is going to foundations for LGBTQ+. And meanwhile, the significant suspension element of this is 3 games, Chad? Is that what we've learned since Thamel's report? 3 games?
Yeah, this is from E. Gordon Gee, the president of West Virginia. The suspension is going to be for 3 games. Everything else you laid out, Hutton, but that significant suspension is 3 games. That part of it shocks me. Look, I'm surprised that he is still employed. But when I saw a significant suspension, I'm thinking, okay, this is a way to placate special interest groups that are going to be after, quite frankly, West Virginia and Bob Huggins. And he opened the door for this. What he said was completely stupid, and it's inexcusable, and it's dumb. And this is on the flip side of what I'm talking about with Ted Lasso. He deserves to be penalized harshly for this. I'm surprised he's not fired, not saying he absolutely should be fired. But when I see significant suspension in what's being reported by Pete Thamel, I think it's more than 3 games. 3 games this last year, by the way, for West Virginia would have included games against Bowling Green, Mount St. Mary's, and Pittsburgh. That significant? I thought significant, Hutton, would be the entire non-conference slate, 12 to 15 games, maybe 20, and that would be an attempt to placate everyone to where the story would almost go away by the time he's back in coaching, and he'd miss a significant amount of time. But according to West Virginia, it's going to be 3 games. And to quote Pac-Man Jones, that's just how it is in West Virginia,
That's just how it is in West Virginia. So is this a sign that they're not going to, moving forward, people are going to point to athletic departments will point to what West Virginia did and say, hey, we don't have to act the way that other universities have in automatically removing a coach or removing a player? Is this similar to what we saw in reaction to Alabama this past basketball season? It's the opposite of what we saw Texas do with their basketball program, although Chris Beard is right back into coaching. So, I mean, maybe we should have expected this, maybe not. I'm surprised, like you are, though, that we didn't see the immediate reaction to the live radio interview where, I mean, he doubles down on it. He says it twice, and he's speaking directly to Xavier in doing that. That's the big surprise.
I thought we
didn't take the stance that he should be fired. We didn't want him automatically fired within hours. We thought that would be the case based on just the landscape of athletics. And that hasn't been the case.
I'm surprised. And not just athletics. I mean, I think any position of power. Like especially if you're in a position to influence others and you are the head of something. Well, Bob Huggins is the head of the basketball program.
Depending on what you say, you can get elected for saying things like that.
At West Virginia. Give me an example, what you're talking about.
What did Trump say before he got elected? Grab women by the what?
Yeah. Now, but again, we're talking apples and oranges.
But I mean,
Trump said this while he was mic'd up before an interview to someone else while the guy was laughing.
I know. And the media ran with it.
Yeah.
Point being,
the media, but that didn't stop the media from wanting him to be out of the election. And for that to happen, like this has been pretty mute, I think, in response to all this, right?
But the same media crews are ousting Tom Brenneman before he can get off the air calling a home run.
Exactly. And
that's why I say athletics and not the other landscapes.
Well, I think if a CEO of a company, of any company, went on an interview, went on NPR and said Catholic bleeps, they would not be the CEO of that company any longer. Politics is different because any idiot can get elected, quite frankly, and they can't really vote you out. But I think if you're the head of a business or you're the head of a television network or a movie studio or almost any other major program or sports team in America, and you said that on a live interview, not once but twice, I'm having a hard time finding the institutions that would keep you employed.
But I think it's time and place.
Tom Brenneman's a great example.
Who it is. Dana White can get away with saying anything he wants to on a live interview. Press conferences. They've used this word in press conferences before by their fighters talking up pay-per-view sales. So, I mean, there is another example of this where
But
Brenneman's
Dana White can't get fired.
Brenneman's fired, but he's the head of a company.
Yeah, but he can't get fired. Like, you can get voted out if you're a publicly held shareholders
Vince
can vote you out.
Vince McMahon is now with Endeavor.
But
Same
again,
as Dana White.
Hutton, you're pointing to like the 2% of people
I'm using
that aren't going to do it.
I'm using examples where we normally don't see it, and West Virginia just did it.
Yeah,
with a 3-game suspension.
I think we're mostly agreeing. That's why I'm surprised that it's happened. I mean, you're surprised he wasn't fired, right?
Absolutely, and that's what sparked our conversation is across the athletics landscape, I'm surprised.
Yeah, I just don't even look at it as athletics, though. I think in any, I mean, I just got done talking about Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso is responding to the fringe elements on Twitter that are pissed off at Ted Lasso for not featuring gay characters after 2 seasons. So what do? They turn their entire show into an after-school special featuring forced gay storylines on season 3.
Yeah, with no slurs.
That is what America has become. And if the head of Apple or the head of the Apple TV division or the head of Sony or the head of Warner Brothers went into an interview and said these Catholic homophobic slurs, I think they would be canceled and removed quickly. And I think almost any other program would do the same. That's why West Virginia is the outlier.
Back to the original question, though. Is this now something that we will see moving forward where universities will use West Virginia and their punishment as the example? What is going to be the backlash over the next 24 hours to this? Because in today's Hollywood, they're not making The Hangover.
Yeah.
And that was 10 years ago. That's not 30 years ago. And you could page a doctor in that using the same word that Bob Huggins just used.
I agree. And I think West Virginia is about as far away from Hollywood as you can get. And that's my point of why West Virginia is probably just different.
But in the athletics landscape, I'm curious where it goes from the media coverage.
I think that
because the athletics landscape has been forced to talk politics now for over a decade when people look for an escape.
Yeah,
and West Virginia is turning they're just looking back and saying, hey, we're going to fine them $1 million per season. I don't know how much time. He's 69 years old. I don't know how much he had left on his contract to begin with. That's the other. If it's year to year now, what does that mean? Was it a 10-year contract and he's now year to year? And honestly, what type of punishment is that, given the fact that he's still employed and going into his 17th season with the university? If it's year to year, they're bringing him back. If they're bringing him back now,
it's important to note that. Excuse me. It's important to note that what Twitter cares about and what people who protest things oftentimes care about, or people who want to boycott things care about, is different from what sports fans care about. I've heard from some West Virginia fans; they all love Bob Huggins. They love him.
He's a Hall of Fame coach,
and they still love him. So this to me is West Virginia saying, not that we don't care because they're doing something, but we don't care enough because the people who really matter to us don't really care. And they're not going to let this bother them if he continues to coach the team a certain way.
Well, that's
what they're saying.
Here's the other layer to it. I want to know what happened to the hosts.
That's a good. I thought all along
Huggins going to keep his job for saying the word, but then there are the host laid the foundation for this to happen. Get out of here with that.
So you brought up the Trump example.
Yeah,
Billy Bush was the only one to lose his job.
I know,
and he laughed off camera at one of his guests that he was about to have on the show, and he loses his gig. So is anything going to happen to them?
That's a question we asked in the real time though, because that's.
Well,
you're so pissed off at someone that you punish the other person that was in the room because the other person's Bob Huggins.
Yeah, I don't know where this all goes, because I think that if you're Alabama, as an example, with Nate Oates, if you're entrenched enough and love someone enough, you can excuse and forgive almost anything. And you can come up with an excuse to do something that's very light to them.
Yes.
Based on anything that they've done. So I think in sports, maybe that is one of the last bastions where you can get away with that outside of other levels of entertainment and forgive whatever you want. But I still believe firmly that West Virginia it's probably one of the few programs we'd have gotten away with that. If he did that at Notre Dame, let's say, I think he's fired.
Or if he talks
regardless of his success.
or if he talks about another program other than Xavier and Catholics.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other part of this story.
It's a big part of it. Well, he's also being forced to donate a large chunk of money to Xavier University
Yeah.
as part of this.